Yeah, you're like, I mean, you're in age, like all of our skills trainers have their bachelor's degrees, but they're, some of you guys are really close in age, because you're a junior now, right?
I'm in my third year, but as of this quarter, last quarter, I'm a senior because of transfer credits.
Oh,
so,
cool.
yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
What was the experience like going away to college? Was that because that was your first time kind of away from home?
It felt good.
Yeah.
Like I said, as I said, it's just a whole another world out there, and it was a fresh start for me. It was just a new chapter in the book of my life. It kind of allowed me to start over, you know.
Were your parents really protective of you growing up? I guess even now, do you think that they were more cautious with you?
Not overly protective, but my mother being Jewish, she does sometimes get a little concerned, like maybe, between us, don't tell anybody that. She thought I was dead just because I didn't immediately respond to her call. And it's like, for gosh sakes, Mom, just because I don't immediately respond to you, I'm dead. If something's up, I'll tell you, okay? My dad's a lot more chill.
And do you think that had anything to do with, would she be the same way? Is she the same level of, was she the Jewish mother with your sister too, and with your brother?
Yeah. But I think she really pushed me and to try hard, and it paid off.
I can see that about your mom. I was telling Nick at the beginning, Jackie and I were just in an IEP with his mom's Bonnie Yates. I don't know if you guys know her name, but she's worked with a lot of our families, like Nick was saying. But Jackie and I pretty much spent the day with her in an IEP today, so before she kicked some butt.
I got the most incredible mom in the world. That's what
And I think really like her experience, I had lunch with her today, and she was talking a little bit about the fact that, when you were first in therapy, that for her as a parent, she wasn't an expert in this, and it's hard to see that, it's hard to think about that now because, she's now so knowledgeable, through her own experiences, and is so able to help other families because of, her background and experience. So being a special ed lawyer is like, with that kind of unique history and experience, and the parent, we were eating lunch with the parent as well today with the student who had the IEP, and that parent said for her that made a big difference, knowing that she could talk to this attorney who not only had all of the legal knowledge but also had the personal experience that
families can just definitely be rest assured knowing that they're not going to be screwed over.
Yeah, she knows how to fight, and she did it herself, so.
Thank you.
Nick, you said that when you first started therapy, you said you didn't communicate really well, but how much language did you have at that point?
Well, when I started, as I said earlier, it was nothing, no descriptive language beyond one-word labels.
1 word
and
at about 4.5, you said?
Yeah.
1 word.
Yeah. If you're not sure about questions, don't worry, because I got some for you. So, the first question, and you can actually use all these for all of you, so don't feel like the pressure's all on you. What made you want to do what you do in the first place?
I've always wanted to work with kids, and when I found ABA, it was just like one of those things where I felt like I could actually make a difference in their lives, and I wanted to help them. I wanted to make life better.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone?
I happened to take a couple of classes in my undergrad with Dr. Lowenkron, who you may or may not have heard of, but he's done a lot of work in the field, and that was my first experience in learning what ABA was, and it just seemed to, it made sense, and it really seemed to show me results that it worked, and I thought this is something that, like Jesselyn said, that really can work and help people.
Yeah.
I originally, like, in high school and college, I worked with kids, and I worked at a day camp where this little boy, he was in kindergarten, and he had autism. He was there the entire summer, and some of the other counselors would get, like, frustrated with him and wouldn't really want to take the time to deal with some of his situations. But I stepped in and really, like, felt for this kid, and I was like, I really want to work with kids and, like, give them the attention that they need and deserve. And then actually, whenever I was in college, I was watching a TV show called Parenthood. I don't know if you've seen it.
I think I've heard of it.
But there, in the first season, one of the kids in there has Asperger's, and he had a behavioral therapist. And I saw that, and I was like, that's the job I want. So I got online and figured out how to do that. Yeah.
What do you think about being either a case supervisor or therapist has been most rewarding for you? And what's been most challenging about it? And what ways do you think it's helped you as a person as much as it helps the families and kids you've worked with?
My question.
You were poking my brain.
I feel like, I think everybody can probably relate to this. Like when you see that a kid couldn't do something and after you've been there and worked with them and then they can do it, it's so rewarding to see that you have really helped them, make their life easier in a sense. And I think one of the more difficult parts is just like where you were saying that, it was hard for you to communicate to just everybody. And sometimes it's hard for us to communicate to the kids exactly what it is that we want and what it is that they should be doing. And I think that can get a little hard, and you do have to take a step back and just like take a break and think like, how are they taking this situation and everything? Because obviously, we are much more vulnerable than our kids are, and so it makes it easier for us to communicate, but at the same time, we don't always communicate the same way.
Right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I probably won't talk about that for a while. It's a big question, but I was just thinking on the other side of that, one of the hardest things probably too is, aside from just our own frustrations maybe and trying to get things across, is when you know that you're making a child's life maybe a little more difficult at that moment, and having to kind of still stick to what you're doing in hopes that in the long run it's going to be better, when there's an adorable little one crying in your face, it's hard to not just go, oh, yeah. And as far as rewards, I think the list goes on and on. We often share stories and, just great memories of little moments during the day that happen that really make life good.
I think, if anything, I've learned patience, because it requires, on our end, you just have to learn to be patient and sit back and kind of deal with things. It's been like a great benefit. You can apply what you learned to this job to so much of your life that it makes you a better person for it.
Yeah.
Aaron, for some reason, I think maybe because we've talked about how we both have dreams about
Oh, yeah.
kiddos. I think one of the challenges that Aaron and I have talked about together is, and this is totally, I guess, different from your experience, Nick, but some of the kids that we work with, your outcome is really tremendous, and a success story, tremendous, and all of our kids make progress. But both Aaron and I have, and some other people in the room too, have worked with kids that haven't made that, the same degree of progress. And that's one of the challenges, I think, especially as a therapist working with those kids. And we've talked about how we both have dreams about particular kids that we've worked with for a long time actually talking, but, kids that never did learn to talk, but that they're talking to us and things like that.
Yeah. It always saddens me when, you don't intervene as soon as possible, because that makes it a lot difficult to do so when a person gets to a point where they kind of are able to assert more control over themselves, and they may be in denial of what they have, thinking everything's right. And that, it just saddens me, because they could have been helped, if they had interventions at the right time.
Even for some of our little guys that start really young, like I have worked with, not very many, most of the kids that we work with and we start with at like 2, 3 years old do learn to talk, even if they don't completely recover. But there are occasionally kids that even starting at that very early age with optimal treatment, for whatever reason, that they just, don't develop language or, develop those skills, and that can be a challenge. And
Speaking of challenges, another question I have is, to me, it's not only important that these kids acquire necessary learning skills, but the necessary social skills. And something that just comes to my mind is that, in what ways do you feel that case supervisors and therapists can best help the kids they work with to better understand that they shouldn't be ashamed about having a mental condition that isn't their fault, especially when they feel that way because others give them a hard time for it?
I think like you mentioned before, there's such a stigma about autism itself that people who aren't aware, like you said, they're ignorant about it, that it gives them such a stigma that even some of the parents, you just mentioned being in denial, I think even some of the parents are in denial, and that's why it takes them so long to get their kids into therapy, and then they might not want to share their diagnosis with other people, which makes it really difficult to kind of program for those social skills, because they might not want to tell outside families that, their child has a therapist there and, come on over and let's do a play date and have some social skills. So that's difficult. I think the stigma brings that difficulty with it.
I think sometimes a good way of, to help, well, I don't know that it completely prevents, but that could help prevent the child feeling ashamed is sometimes with our kids who are more advanced, where I think the more subtle the child's deficits are, the more likely it is that other kids are going to pick on them. And so a lot of times what we've done is things like going into a classroom, or not us, but having somebody go in and just talk about bullying, or talk about individual differences to a group of students and how they can help each other, and if they notice a friend having trouble, how, what the right thing to do in that situation is and what the wrong thing to do is in that situation. And sometimes I think that can help, because you can foster that in the kids so that they won't make fun of or do things that would make the child with autism feel ashamed as much.
Yeah, and another question that comes to mind is, so I'm sure you're all aware that there are more methods out there for treating autism, but ABA is the only really scientifically proved one. And for those of you who have some knowledge of this, what are your thoughts on these other methods such as, let's say, relationship development intervention? I'm pretty sure you're aware of that one.
I'm familiar with RDI, and I think that there's definitely, for when I look at it, I can't help but look at some interventions from a behavioral perspective, and I think that there are some good things about it. I think some of the trouble with troubling things with RDI is that it's sort of like a recipe book. It's like, if you use these bean bags, but I think if you take some of the concepts and you apply them, and you apply them using the different interests of the child, or the different, you modify them in ways where it's based around the child and the child's motivation. I think some of those things can be used in more of a behavioral analytic way. I don't think that it's totally exclusive. I think it just depends on how it's interpreted and used. So I don't think things are necessarily mutually exclusive, but
the way I look at it is that maybe there are benefits, but I wouldn't feel comfortable about using something that isn't scientifically proven. Although I think it's important to keep what is scientifically proven open to further development. So
yeah,
that's my thought on it.
I agree with you, and I wasn't necessarily saying like RDI is a good approach, and think that there's some things that could be taken from it though.
Right.
I don't know whether you guys, a lot of you know what RDI is. Yeah.
And besides autism, in what other fields do you think, any of you think that ABA has been successfully disseminated? And where do you feel it's lacking, or would like to see more of it put into practice? Because there are several possibilities.